This is Modern World History, Unit 3 test, 19th Century Nationalism, 1815 through 1871. Part 1, covering learning targets 1 through 6, the Metternich system, success or failure, 12 points. So the question I'm asking here is, were the Congress of Vienna and the Metternich system successful? So the Congress of Vienna was where the monarchs of Europe, or at least their representatives, came together to try to decide what Europe should look like after Napoleon was defeated. And what they really wanted to do was turn the clock back to a time when they felt safe before the French Revolution or Napoleon ever happened. They wanted to prevent the possibility of any future revolutions, and so there were certain steps that they took to try to achieve those things. And the question I'm asking you is, were they successful? So the first thing we need to do is look at this first little section, which says, provide 3 specific things that the Congress of Vienna and the Metternich system did to try to take Europe back to the time before the French Revolution and prevent any future revolutions. So in the first box, think of something that they did to try to restore Europe to where it was before the French Revolution happened. And if not that, then think of one of the things that they did to try to make sure that there would be no future revolutions. And after you've thought of that, write about it in that first box. After you've done that, try to think of another example. What was another thing that they did at the Congress of Vienna, or that was part of the Metternich system, that was designed to take Europe back to the time before the French Revolution or prevent any future revolutions? And write about that in the second box. And finally, in the third box, try to think of a third example, another way that they tried to take Europe back to the time before the French Revolution and prevent future revolutions, and write about that in the third box. All right, now of course what we know though is that despite all of these efforts by the monarchs of Europe and by Metternich himself to try to prevent future revolutions, there were revolutions. There were liberals who were able to achieve revolutions, and there were nationalists who were able to achieve revolutions. And the liberals overthrew old governments and replaced them with more liberal governments. But I guess you could say the liberals overthrew monarchs and replaced them with liberal governments, and the nationalists overthrew foreigners who were ruling over them and replaced them with governments from the same nation. And so we're looking for examples. Now, in this, you're not allowed to use Italy or Germany as examples in this, so you're going to have to think of other examples. So in the first little box, other than Italy or Germany, think of an example of a liberal revolution or a nationalist revolution that succeeded, and write about it. And then in the second box, think of another liberal revolution or nationalist revolution, and write about it. And finally, in the third box, think of another liberal revolution or nationalist revolution that was successful, and write about it. And now turn the page. Part 2, covering learning targets 2 and 3. Liberalism and nationalism, 6 points. Please circle the best answer to each of the following questions. First question, what did it mean to be a liberal during the 19th century? So you're going to circle 2 spaces. There are 2 answers to this question, so you're going to circle 2 spaces. What did it mean to be a liberal in the 19th century? A, you wanted a constitutional government with limited power. Is that what it meant to be a liberal? If so, circle that. But don't forget, we're going to do 2 of them, so you have to circle another one. If not, move on. B, you wanted government to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. If that's what it meant to be a liberal, circle that. But again, remember you need to circle 2 on this one. And if that's not it, move to the next one. And finally, C, you wanted government to protect people's natural rights. Sorry for the interruption there with the bell ringing. You wanted government to protect people's natural rights. If that's part of what liberals wanted, if that's what it meant to be a liberal, then circle that one. Now, before you move on to question number 2, make sure that you have circled 2 of the answers for number 1. All right, number 2, what did it mean to be a nationalist during the 19th century? This one, you're only going to be circling one answer. So, what did it mean to be a nationalist during the 19th century? So, A, you were very proud of your country and its accomplishments. If that's what it meant to be a nationalist, circle A. If not, move on. You believed that the world would be better off if every country was run just like yours. If that's what it meant to be a nationalist, then circle B. If not, move on. And C, you wanted to be governed by rulers of the same culture as you, not by foreigners. So you wanted to be governed by your own people, not by foreigners. If that's what it meant to be a liberal in the 19th century, circle that one. And obviously, before you move on to the next part, make sure you've circled at least one of those. All right, part 3, learning targets 8 and 9. The unification of Italy, the unification of Germany. We have 3 multiple choice questions here. Number 3, which of the following did not result in the removal of foreign rulers from Italy? So this is a did not, so you got to pay real close attention to that. A, revolts in 1848 by Giuseppe Mazzini's organization Young Italy against Austria and Spain. Did that result in Austrian and Spanish rulers being kicked out of Italy? If yes, then you have to skip that because this is a did not. But if it didn't, if those revolts did not succeed in kicking Austrians and Spanish out of Italy, then circle A. But if it did, move on. B, wars fought by the Kingdom of Sardinia and Piedmont, led by Cavour, against Austria. Did Cavour fight against Austria and kick them out of Spain? If so, skip this one, because this is a did not. If that didn't lead to Austrians being kicked out of Italy, then circle B. And finally, C, attacks led by Giuseppe Garibaldi against the Spanish in southern Italy. If that did result in the Spanish getting kicked out of Italy, then don't circle that one, because this is a did not. If that didn't happen, if Garibaldi did not kick the Spanish out of southern Italy, then circle that. So before you move on to the next question, make sure you have circled one of the 3. Number 4, how did Otto von Bismarck unify Germany? On this one, you'll be circling 2 spaces. A, by hoping the German princes would voluntarily hand over their territories to Prussia. Was that Bismarck's idea of how to get Germany united, hoping that the German princes would voluntarily hand over their land to Prussia? If so, circle A, but remember you've got to circle 2 on this one. If that's not it, move on. B, by fighting wars against the countries where Germans were living under foreign rule. Were there some places where Germans were living under the rule of foreigners? And if so, did Bismarck make war against those countries? If so, circle B. Don't forget, you need to circle 2 on this one. If not, move on. C, by showing other Germans how weak Austria was, so they would agree to join Prussia. If that was part of Otto von Bismarck's strategy for how he united Germany, circle that one. If not, circle the other 2, because you have to circle at least 2 before you move on to number 5. Make sure you've circled 2 answers for number 4. Number 5. How did Italy's Cavour and Germany's Bismarck work together to accomplish their goals? A, they agreed to unite their 2 smaller countries into one larger country. Is that what happened? Did Cavour and Bismarck unite their countries into one? If so, circle A. If not, move on. B, both staged their revolts at the same time so the other Europeans could not crush them. If that's how they did it, timing up their revolts so that the Europeans could not crush them both. If that's how they did it, circle B. If not, move on. C. Both used their armies to attack Austria, forcing the Austrians to split their army in two. If that's how Bismarck and Cavour worked together to accomplish their goals, then circle C. So before you move on to the next page, make sure you've circled one of the answers for number 5. All right, turn the page. Part 4, which covers learning targets 1 through 9. Show me on a map. Please locate and label with its letter and place name 4 out of the 6 places listed in the box below. Okay, so there are 6 places listed or described in the box down here, and you need to locate them on the map, and you need to put the letter in the proper location, and then you also need to write the name of the place. So you need to do 4 of these, and there are 6 total. No, actually, you know what? I gave you 7. I gave you 7 total. So you've got 7 choices, and you only need to do 4 of them. So, A, the city where the monarch's representatives met after the defeat of Napoleon, and which experienced a revolt among liberals that was temporarily successful in 1848. If you can think of that city, then locate it on the map and mark a letter A in that location, and then write the name of the city. B, the state which experienced revolutions in 1830 and 1848, leading finally to the empire of Napoleon III. So pick the country that had 2 revolutions and ultimately ended up being ruled by Napoleon III. If you know that country, locate it on the map, mark a letter B on that location, and then write the name of that country. C, the state in which Creoles, or Criollos, fought to successfully gain independence in 1821. So if you know the name of the modern state where the Creoles, or Criollos, fought to gain their independence in 1821, mark that on the map with the letter C and write the name of the state next to it. D, the state where nationalist militias led by Theodoros Kolokotronis fought the Turks. So if you know the state which became independent when nationalist militias led by Kolokotronis fought and ultimately defeated the Turks, mark that state on the map with letter D and then write the name of the state. E, the state where Daniel O'Connell used nonviolent civil disobedience in a failed attempt to gain independence. So if you know where Daniel O'Connell tried the strategy of nonviolent civil disobedience and did not succeed, locate that on the map with the letter E and then write the name of it. F, the state that was home to Giuseppe Mazzini, who introduced the idea of nationalism. So where was Mazzini from? If you know that, mark it on the map with the letter F and then write the name of the state next to it. And finally, G, the state that was formed out of many small kingdoms, all ruled by kings of the same nation. So this is one nation that was broken up into many little small kingdoms, and eventually those kingdoms were merged into one unified state. If you know what that is, mark it on the map with the letter G and write the name of it. Again, you need to do 4 out of those 7. And just like that, we're done. So here is enrichment credit. Same as always, on the back of this page, show what you know or understand above and beyond what's on the test by writing about some things that you learned in class that were not on the test. In doing so, do not just list items, explain them. Write as much as you can. You may earn up to 10% of the total points available on the test. And this test is, I believe it's 31 points, so you can earn 3 points of extra credit. So I encourage you to write as much as you can. And when you're done with that, you're done with the test. So congratulations. The first grading period is now over, and we'll come back on Monday and start a new unit. Have a great long weekend. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.